It has been a tragic few days here after that mass shooting in a Texas school. Families, friends, communities, and even worldwide, we are grieving the loss of those lives that were taken at the hands of a gunman. I do want to bring in a counselor. She's a grief counselor. She's an end-of-life therapist, international speaker, and author. It's Kelly Grosslocks to talk about how we handle all of this traumatic grief and cope with this crisis that we're having of gun violence across America. Kelly, I know you've been on with us before. We appreciate your time, especially as we talk about this tragic situation where families are once again grieving the loss of their children who were just going to school, celebrating the end of their school year, and here they are now planning funerals.
Yeah, Christy, thanks for having me on. I think what I'm hearing a lot from people is there are no words. I think a lot of people are saying that there's no words. And you know, as a grief therapist, it's hard for me to even wrap my head around how do I want to help these people. But what I know and what I come down to is always showing up for the communities. You know, for us, this is going to settle. For those of us that are not directly impacted by it, it will settle. But for the families that are impacted, it's going to be lifelong. And I think we have to remember that as support people, whether we live in that community or whatever, however we can show up, that this is something we want to commit to lifelong. We can't just show up right now. And I also want to speak to the families that have lost children or loved ones in the past from violence, that right now you may find yourself getting what we would call more kind of reactivated in your grief, and that it can be very, very difficult time in trying to understand where is this coming from. My experience was years ago, and why is this coming up for me now? It's very important to hold that and to hold that space, because, and even if you've not lost a child violently, but have lost a child or have lost anybody really, because we also have to honor that there were two adults' lives who were taken as well at the school. And so I think it's really important to remember that these community grief experiences touch us personally. We don't have to be individually involved in order for this to touch us personally. And what I want to express to everybody watching, that you have a right to feel all of your big feelings. You have a right to feel grief. You have a right to feel anger. You have a right to feel shock, confusion, sadness, all of that, because we are impacted by what we watch and by what we hear. And it's hard to find a person out there right now that is not impacted by the enormity of this trauma and this grief.
And you think about, too, you know, we've actually had a really tough last few years dealing with the coronavirus pandemic, separating ourselves from sometimes family, loved ones, or co-workers. Then we've also been having to deal with all of these other crises happening across our country. Now you have this situation where we've had multiple mass shootings in a row outside Chicago, outside of a McDonald's. Then you had also that Buffalo shooting in a supermarket, here now targeting children inside of a classroom. It just seems like it's a lot, and it's been weighing a lot of people down. How do we continue to work through it when we just see it happening over and over again?
Well, it's a very common feeling to feel numb and to feel almost defeated when we keep hearing this over and over again. But I think what's important, and especially with these school shootings, because this now has gone after our most sacred, which is our children, and it's unimaginable in many countries that this would ever happen. And so what we have to try and do is limit the amount that we're taking in. And so whether that's what you watch, whether that's what you read, whether that's how much you talk about it to people, that it's important right now because people are getting very saturated, just as you mentioned. It's one after the other. We can't even catch a breath and take a moment to acknowledge what has happened in the community and in this country, because it's happening on top of each other. And so that's called cumulative trauma or cumulative grief. And what we have to do and try really hard to do is to sit be quiet, and do things to take care of ourselves, at creating safe spaces in our home, finding your safe people, talking to your safe people with limitation, talking about this, but then also being quiet, going into nature, doing whatever we have to do to really be mindful of how much saturation is coming into us. You know, in a way, because I work so much with families in trauma, and they will say to me, I wish I had the luxury of limiting this. I wish I had the luxury of putting a boundary around this. And so I'm very sensitive that I understand that people impacted by this directly do not have the quote unquote luxury to put a boundary around this about how much they watch or how much they listen to or how much they read, because it is in their morning, noon, and evening, including their sleep. So I think for us, that are on the outside trying to support, trying to donate, trying to be activists, whatever way we're getting involved, we do have to try and limit some of this, because this has crossed over into our most sacred human beings, which are the children in this community. And so we have now entered into really what is the most unimaginable. And so this is going to take even extra love, extra self-care, extra caution with our mental health, extra support from the people around us. And some people may need to seek professional support, even again, if not impacted by this directly. This is going to hit all of us, and it's going to go in and it's going to hit our traumas. It's going to hit our grief. It's going to hit our losses, our insecurities, our fears, whatever that may be, in its own ways. And so we just have to be very mindful that if you're feeling deeply impacted by this, it's understandable. It's okay. And it's meant to be acknowledged. It's meant to be supported. It's not meant to be explained. It's not meant to be judged. And I just think that that is a very important message to get across.
I like that you touched on too the mental health aspect for everyone who has been watching this story. We heard from some of our Texas leaders and local leaders. They were talking about providing services to those for as long as they need. How important is that they are recognizing that, mental health is just as important as it is to try to also tackle all the other issues that we're facing?
Yeah. Well, the mental health is key here. I do want to say that I think it's really important to understand that just because somebody has a mental health issue does not create them to act violently like this. That I really want to be sensitive to that, because that's going to play into some of the stigma around mental health. Now, the mental health from the impact of this is great, and the trauma and the grief. And I do hope that there is follow through and that continued services happen. It's very likely and very common that we come in the beginning of a trauma and we support people. But most people that have experienced grief or trauma will tell you that month to 2 months later, they feel abandoned, they feel lonely. And so what's really important is that we are consistently providing services for people. A huge shout out to the funeral homes in Uvalde, Texas, who are providing services free of charge for these victims and their families. I think that's a beautiful start. I hope the community and other resources will follow suit and be able to provide the services that are needed, regardless of financial impact, because these families are going to need the community for the rest of their lives. There are going to be things like graduation times, prom, soccer tryouts, choir tryouts, all of these things that are going to happen going forward that their children should have been involved in, or that the teachers should have been involved in, and they're not going to be. So be mindful of what I would call the more quiet anniversary times or quiet dates where grief can get very activated, such as maybe obviously a child's birthday, but maybe a tryout for a sport team that they would have tried out for, and this next year they're not going to be there. So step in, lean in, and stay in the lives of the people in this community.
I think that's important to mention too, because as you said, even just showing a little bit of support or even just sitting with them, if you don't know how to help someone, what is some of that advice on showing up day in and day out, or even, a year, 5 years down the road? It's just about checking in.
Exactly. Christy, great question. Many people come to me, they're worried about they're going to say the wrong thing. And what I will say is saying nothing is actually probably the most damaging thing that we can do, because what many people fear is that they're going to create sadness or big feelings in the person, in the parent, in the grandparent, in the sibling. And what I want to reassure people is that these families have not forgotten that their person died. Their people have not forgotten that this tragedy happened. So there's really nothing we can say that's going to quote unquote remind them. We want to say the name of the person that has been killed. In this situation, we want to often say the name of the teachers. We want to say the name of the children when addressing. We want to, at some point, give memories of how this child impacted us. What do we remember about them? Because what often happens in these tragic situations, and it's so understandable right now, but the main focus becomes about how they died, and understandably so. And what is also important to families eventually is that people remember that these children, these teachers lived. They had a life prior to this tragic murder. And I think that it's very important to also highlight and hold up very high that these people all also had a life. And so say the name, say it often, show up for them. It's not so much about having the right words, it's about having the compassion in the space, and also telling people, I will listen to you and I will be with your grief for as long as this takes. And that I will also always honor, and then you say the name, I will always honor them by and commit to something. Is it planting a tree? Is it lighting a candle each year? Is it planting flowers? What is it? And I think that that is so important, because people want to remember that their people lived and their people mattered. Because right now they're a very tragic headline, and that's understandable that that's the focus. But when you get farther away from this, it's really about remembering that they lived and they mattered.
I'm glad that you mentioned too that, it doesn't mean you're a bad person if you don't know what to say to someone. Sometimes just being there and just saying something is the most important thing. What about those who have been, you hear of the tragic situation, it's only been a few days, so obviously it's very fresh on people's minds. There might be some parents out there who don't live in Texas. They live, multiple states away, and they, feel guilty for being worried about themselves and worried about their own children. That's an okay feeling to have too for all of us who have been watching this story.
Absolutely. I've been hearing from people all over the world. A lot of bereft parents that have lost children, and wanting to know how can they reach out to these parents. It's very common, even if you've not experienced this kind of trauma, to be very scared for your child. If you have a school-age child, it's very scary. And my heart goes out to the principals, the teachers, the front desk people, the nurses, whomever's working in schools right now, because what has become your passion of teaching now becomes this one of the greatest sources of fear. And so we have to be very mindful. I think when you're talking with school-age children, it's important, and it's very difficult, but still to try and instill some safety in them, that your teachers, your principals are keeping your school safe. We at home are doing our best to keep you safe. It's also important as the adult to create safety in your home. That doesn't mean just locks on the doors and alarm systems. This means emotional safety. This is very important right now in a trauma, to create emotional safety in your home, whether that's turning off all devices, whether that's having a corner of the couch that has soft blankets, soft pillows, soft socks, soft toys, soothing music, whatever that may be. It's important for all of us right now to have safe places in our homes. And I think that we don't have a lot of control over the world. So we control within our space what we can do. And this is going to be so important for kiddos, for teens, for high school age children, that where is the safe space that we are going to dedicate in our home to go when we're not feeling safe or when we're struggling with something. And I think that because any of us that are parents are scared, and, you know, grocery stores, places of faith, movie theaters, I mean, the targets are great, and it's scary. And we have coming out of a time of such isolation with this pandemic that has impacted us so greatly. And I will tell you, isolation and trauma and isolation and grief do not go well together. So right now, we really want to be mindful of how do we have those safe connections. It might have to happen within our own home. It might have to happen just with our inner circle, but it needs to happen is the point. So you being worried, Christy, as a parent, me being worried as a parent because of this is completely natural. We don't have to apologize for that. This is human nature. And I think what we're realizing, I also have sat down with thousands of people. Not one person has ever said to me that's had trauma in their life that they thought this was going to happen to them. And I think that that's really important. And that's where we start seeing it cross over into, again, one of our most sacred experiences in life, which is children. And that's going to heighten all of our fear. It's going to heighten all of our paranoia, and it's going to heighten all of our anxiety.
Do you think, too, keeping that open conversation, you know, with your children will really help us in the future if they are more open to talking about their feelings? How are you handling this that we're going through, even if it's not a traumatic event, even if it's just a, you know, change within your own family, a change within your own community? I think that could help set us up for a better future as well.
Absolutely, because we know that life is going to be difficult going through life. We just know that. You don't have to work in the field of trauma and grief to know that difficult things happen to people. And so, yes, this is an opportunity for us to set up conversations about emotions, conversations about taking care of ourselves, conversations about trauma. It is an opportunity for us to do that. Conversations about what makes you feel safe, what makes you feel scared, and helping people identify that. Now, I've been asked many times, how do I talk to my child about this? Do I talk to my child about this? The answer is yes, you talk to your child about this. Of course, different age groups can tolerate different details. The younger ones tend to be soothed a little easier than maybe the older child, because the older child is kind of aware this has been going on now in our country. And the younger child can be soothed a little easier. But yes, we want to, because what's ended up happening now is so many of our kids have their own devices, and it's all over social media. And we want to be able to give them the information from us and control the messaging rather than having it come from, there can be lots of misinformation that can go out on the social media components and different things. We want it to come from us. And we want to start by asking the child questions rather than instilling in them the knowledge we think they need to know. We want to ask them, have you heard about what happened in the school in Texas? What kind of questions do you have? What kind of feelings do you have about it? And I think what, you know, we can say is there are people in this world that are not safe. However, you have a lot of people in your life, Principal so-and-so, Miss so-and-so, Mr. so-and-so, your mommy, your grandma, your aunties, your siblings, whoever that may be. We are safe people, and we're going to do whatever we can do to keep this family safe. And I think that has to be instilled. And right now, that's hard. It's hard to instill safety in a world that we're not really feeling safe, but it still is our job as the adults in these children's lives to do whatever we can do for the emotional and physical safety of our kiddos.
And I think you just said it perfectly too. I mean, they hear things in classrooms, they see things on social media. So you helping control that conversation and having it openly, honestly. And as you said, you know, you can edit out details depending on the age, but it's just something that you can check in with them and then continue to do so. And, you know, Kelly, finally, I just want to ask anything that else you think is important to take away from here, especially as we are continuing to deal with just learning more details about this case, and we know that unfortunately this isn't going to be the last shooting that we see across our country.
No, again, I think it has to start with self-care is such a overused word, but really what it means is protection of self, protection of energy, protection of, again, how much do we saturate ourselves in this? So I think it has to start there. And then rather than having this kind of stop us in our place or defeat us, decide what you want to do with this sadness. Do you want to get involved in something to make change? Do you want to volunteer for a grief organization? Do you want to do you want to join something at your place of faith that's activist work or outreach work? I think that's really, really important as we're going through this, because what ends up happening, Christy, is people get so overwhelmed that they shut down. And there's a time for that, but it's also important to take these things and reach out. You don't necessarily have to live in Texas to make a change, to make an impact. There are places everywhere in our country that are being impacted by this exact story. And we can take that and we can utilize all of this big energy that we're having and bring it outward. It might be a random act of kindness. It might be a donation. It might be very specific to violence in schools, whatever that may be. When we get to that place in the next few days, I really want to encourage people to think about how can you take this from within and bring it out to make this a safer place to live.
A good thing to point out, especially as we know that there's a lot of people out there who are grieving not only for these families but also for the community as well, and they are just worried about what will happen next. So important that we're talking about it, we're trying to handle it and deal with it as we continue to push forward. Kelly Grossox, we do appreciate you helping us all work through this trauma, especially since it's just been so fresh and just so tragic to see those young lives taken too soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christy, and so much peace to the community. It's heartbreaking, and just remember though that these people lived also, and I think that's just so important. And when you look at these faces, remember their names.
Remember their names and continue to try to honor them in the way that their families would appreciate it. Thank you so much, Kelly, for joining us here on Live Now from Fox.